Quick snap.
This quick snap goes back to a lost episode of clips that I posted on my previous YouTube channel of our defensive lineman playing a head-up leg technique, which is, to me, a more aggressive way to two-gap, where the defensive lineman's primary focus is striking, getting underneath the pad level, and knocking the offensive lineman, their head up across from back, resetting the line of scrimmage. Before we get into the fits and how a defensive front might utilize this technique and the actual clips of our guys playing, just a quick thank you to anyone who supported the YouTube channel over the past 2.5 months. Left off in September with the last video I posted. It looked like we weren't going to have fall football here in Michigan in the 2020 season, and we got some really fortunate news that we were going to have a 6-game regular season. Everyone was going to make the playoffs. Had some success this year. Ended up 4-3. We lost a rematch in the opening round of the playoffs by 2 points. The team we were playing got a couple guys back and healthy, and things went the way they did. Our guys battled their butt off all year long, and I think we grew as young men and whatnot. Finally shook off some of that end of season funk that some of us get when things maybe don't finish exactly how we were hoping or planned. And excited to get back to making some videos, because the number of subscribers continue to grow, even though I didn't post anything new for the past 2.5 months, and the hours of watch time are just continuing to increase. So that's an indicator that some of you out there are finding these educational or entertaining, or hopefully some combination of both. And I hope to continue to grow. Hope you continue to grow as a coach. Hope I get to start interacting with some of you, because I got some ideas coming up where I think all of us could continue to really benefit from interacting and just developing better as coaches. So as far as the run fits, again, what a leg technique is, that's not purposely getting reached. It's being so focused on being vertical through the offensive lineman you're head up on that you're susceptible to the reach block, and you're going to get reached, and the defensive scheme is going to account for that. So first off, where the leg technique shows up, where you're playing behind a reach block, something like an outside zone or a stretch or a sweep, all of the offensive blockers take their wide step to get in their zone track, however they're teaching up their zone. And the 4 techniques and the 0 technique, their primary focus on their first 2, 3, 4 steps is to go through that man across from them. They're putting one hand on each side of the breastplate, trying to knock that guy back. And as they're doing that, that center is going to reach our 0 technique. That tackle is going to get our 4 technique reach. That other tackle is going to get that backside 4 technique reach. And in the end, we need to account for that with the defensive front. So as the play develops and as the fits happen, our 9 technique needs to set the edge out here. We want him to force it in almost all situations against some sort of reach block. This guard is trying to overtake that 4 technique if it's a genuine stretch or outside zone type scheme. Our 4 technique needs to own that B gap. The tackle can reach him, that's okay. He's playing behind the block. He's going to stretch that block, and meanwhile our inside linebacker, both of our inside linebackers are keying the guards here, and they're A gap to C gap players. So as that guard gets extra wide, as the flow of the backfield starts to go a little bit wide, our 30 technique is going to help hit that 4 technique out, and he's going to become the C gap fitter, because he's got his guard ultimately working outside. He needs to work outside. He's going to fit that C gap. Our 4 technique, like I said, is fitting the B gap. On the backside here, just like the 4 technique can't get reached by the next guy, our 0 technique nose can't get reached by the guard that's trying to overtake him on the scheme here. So he's owning that backside A gap. And as I said, our 30 technique linebackers, they're keying those guards. He gets that guard stepping down. He's going to start downhill. And as he sees his A gap get closed and he starts to match the flow, he's free to scrape over the top, and he becomes the A gap cutback linebacker. The center's zone would end up working to him. And then back here, he needs to be fast enough that tackle doesn't cut him off. Our 4 technique squeezes down the space, and we got a cutback guy in that 9 technique back there. He's checking quarterback, making sure the ball actually gets handed off, and then after that he plays the cutback if the outside zone would really drastically cut back or something like that. Where I really love the two gapping, the leg technique is against gap schemes. So a team that lines up like this, they're probably going to complement things with some sort of quarterback counter. So we get play side here. They can do a couple different things to the 4 technique. If they know that he's B-gap responsible like that, or they know we pinch quite a bit, a lot of teams will lock on that 4 technique. They got the double on the nose. They got the cutoff, or the scoop and hinge by the backside tackle. Here's their pull and kick. Here's their pull and wrap. So the way we're fitting that nose, he is going to make most of his plays in split double teams by creating a vertical seam in it. So by trying to really knock that center back, he's going to end up with the center on a deeper level than the guard that's double teaming him, so he can fall off into the play side A gap, because that's where his pressure key in the guard is saying, hey, work here. Throw your hips into that guard and work to that A gap to your right. Our backside 4 technique, he's trying to get off the ball. He's probably going to be cut off most of the time by that tackle. We do start to talk to our junior and senior guys, our upperclassmen, about seeing that guard pull out of the corner of the eye. If they get that, they know they're at least working here and closing that gap off afterwards. As I said previously, our linebackers are keying their guard. They get a guard down block like that, and now they know it's the down block. They're working down, and they got the back faking away probably here, faking the outside zone that they've been running, and then the quarterback coming back. That 30 tech linebacker, if that 4 technique gets washed some, he's going to scrape outside of it. If that 4 technique stays outside or stays through the man and this gap stays open, he's trying to hit that run through there. And then the backside linebacker, he's working down. He sees the guard away, scrapes for opposite A, sees his nose has closed that opposite A. He's going to fit appropriately off his 30 technique buddy there, his 30 technique linebacker. If that B gap's still open, he's going to take it. If it's closed, which is what we ideally want, he's scraping all the way over and then fitting off of however the 9 technique takes it on. Most likely we want that 9 technique to force that kick out, just so that way we don't have to get the secondary overly involved in the fit. As far as the even front's concerned, I think you can do it. Again, we're always trying to focus on get off and get a good strike with our defensive line. I think this leg technique is best with a head up technique. So both these 2 techniques would be on their leg technique. They're through the guard they're across from, which means they're going to get reached. So we get back to that outside zone type scheme here. That 2 technique, he can't get reached by the center. He can't get reached by the next guy behind him. This 2 technique, that guard's going to reach him all day. He can't get reached by that backside tackle. That's what can't happen. As far as the fits here, that 5 technique, I'd expect him to win and stay in C gap. And the 60 technique linebacker that I have drawn up, he's fitting off that 5 technique. He's flow outside, that reach block by the tackle. He's trying to set the edge on the sniffer, trying to reach out there. 0 tech linebacker, the way I would have him key it, he's keying that center. He takes a step up. Center is zoning or reaching to his left. He's going to peek at that guard. That guard is also working out. He becomes a B-gap fitter because his 2 technique is playing the A-gap. Again, the 2 technique, he's going to get reached by, and he's going to lock on that guard and stretch him for a couple steps, but he's going to get reached. He just can't get reached by that center, and then that's why we have him fighting the reach block and stretching it, but he's going to be behind. If that guard's any good and takes 2-3 steps, that guard is going to be outside of him, and that's okay. The 0 technique linebacker would go fit the B-gap. We got play side A-gap by the left 2 technique. The right 2 technique ends up in the backside B gap, and then we'd have cutback support out of the backside outside linebacker. And if you're playing the outside linebacker that way, 5 technique would have to be responsible for quarterback keep if that's something that a team you're playing does. Against the gap scheme, again, let's go with counter here. I like this a little bit more from an offensive standpoint as opposed to up there. That 4 technique can be really messy running a counter GH back at him. Counter against the even scheme. All right, we get our double team. I was focused on knocking that guard back as the 2 technique. So that 2 technique is going to try and vertically split the double team, hip into, and be the B gap fitter. We got guard away to kick that 5 technique. So that 2 technique goes for a strike. He's probably going to play underneath that center's block. The key thing is he can't run too far upfield. And we do coach our guys if that center blocks back too flat to go ahead and cross face and be an A-gap fitter in that spot. Backside, if that tackle's any good at all, any competent at all, he's going to cut that 5 technique off. That 5 technique is going to squeeze it back and limit any sort of cutback lane, but that's going to happen. And then they got their wrapper. So now the linebacker fits off all that. Again, I'd have the 0 technique. He's going to step and key the center. The center's block back. As soon as he sees the guard go away, he's going to fit for opposite A. If that opposite A is there, he's got to take it. If our 2 technique gets washed or something, that A gap closes, he can go a little bit wider. He's going to spill the wrap. If I'm an even front, I'd want this 5 technique to spill the kick out by the guard, and then the 60 technique linebacker would be playing force. And we got cutback support out of the 60 technique linebacker from the left side. Again, some sort of probably fake sweep and quarterback counter coming over here. And that's the way it would fit. Again, the key idea, no matter what the front is, if you're teaching a leg technique to your defensive lineman, the goal is to get that offensive lineman you're across from knocked back, reset the line of scrimmage, and keep those linebackers free to run down the ball and make tackles.
On this first clip, keep your eyes on our nose. He ends up in the backside A-gap. What our leg technique is, he's not purposely going there. He's trying to knock the center back. And because of that, the center on this tackle trap scheme is able to reach him. Our backside inside linebacker reads that A-gap is closed with the nose. Our nose does a pretty good job turning the corner here. We're nice and physical at outside linebacker, like our head up, but we're physical taking on the trap, spill the ball out. Our 3 technique fights the reach block of the guard, and that backside inside linebacker is completely unblocked even if we don't make the play up front with our nose and our 3 technique. End zone shot, keep your eyes actually on the inside linebacker on the right side of our screen here. He's keying that guard. He sees the guard kick out our 3 technique. I really doubt he saw this tackle pulling, so that guard kicks out. He's filling that A-gap near him. He sees the A-gap's closed with the nose, so he has the green light now to scrape over the top, and he'd be a bonus guy there if our nose didn't make the play all by himself. Pretty good play by our nose. Check out the nose on this one. Completely disrupts the blocking scheme. Out physicals that center, just a mismatch that favors us defensively, admittedly. And if we have a little better perimeter play out here, the play probably gets stopped for a loss instead of the 5-yard gain that it ends up being. Nose, once again, getting off the ball. Could be a little lower with his pad level, but his arms are forklifting and underneath that center. He gets an extension, and what playing a leg technique allows our nose to do is create that vertical penetration, knocking the center back that causes the seam in the double team where he's going to be able to split it. If he'd hip into the double team a little harder, instead of, for whatever reason, he shuffles back here, if he hips into that a little bit harder, he probably is making the tackle for a 2-yard loss instead of being part of the tackle for a no gain. End zone shot, you can see how we're able to stay downhill at linebacker, and we got our safety in a cutback spot. Again, if that nose hips into there, we're in even better shape. Complete mismatch with our nose against this particular center, but playing this leg technique, which again, we don't coach our kids or use the term leg. We're just focused on knocking the guy across from us back, which causes us to play behind reach blocks, lets our linebackers get over the midline because we're in the backside A-gap briefly, and then create separation because we're creating that penetration. Once again, great job. Ends up working into what is the play side A-gap because he feels the double team. We just have some issues outside linebacker there of playing our flat responsibility. Skip ahead here and get to another run scheme. So now we're playing here as a one technique, and I'd like him to try to strike the center, but because we are stepping to the center and then we get that immediate pressure, that's very similar to being a two technique, trying to knock the guard back and then the guard getting a step on you on a reach block. So included this in the clips here because, all right, I'm behind the block. Ball's definitely crossed my face. I'm going to rip across and become part of the tackle late. Here we are. Keep your eyes first on the nose. Complete cluster there with the nose knocking the center back, knocks the pulling guard off his track, and he lets the backside inside linebacker scrape across super clean. We'll go back to the start and let you watch. The MAC linebacker here is on a blitz in the B gap. He steps up. He sees there's no way the ball's going to get out over here. We're playing a two technique and a zero technique and kind of a different variation of a front that we were using in a spot where we needed more defensive linemen on the field, and the inside linebacker is able to scrape on the other side of the line of scrimmage because our nose was so focused on knocking the center back, resetting the line of scrimmage, and we're able to make a tackle for loss on trap with the backside linebacker on a blitz, knowing that that was going to be his only path to the fullback to make the play. Here, we're supposed to be a three technique. This is one of those things you're coaching high school guys, and sometimes they miss a line. He is really lined up as a two technique and does a great job of getting underneath the kids' pads in a violent strike, creates separation, and there's no place now for this ball carrier to go. He can't get out. If we had a little better play and if we were more aligned appropriately and we were doing this as a three technique, which is, we coach the strike the same, just as an outside technique, I'm probably not going to get reached. If I'm a head up technique, I'm going to get reached, and he is getting reached here, but he creates a lot of knockback. If we're a three technique, we probably keep this inside linebacker who's getting down blocked by the tackle clean, and because our three technique, who's playing as the two technique, can't control the B gap, the ball carrier gets out and gets a 4-yard gain. But it's a great example of we are not purposely going behind the block. We are purposely trying to knock the offensive lineman back, create separation, rip off the block, and get to the ball, which causes us to play behind reach blocks because we're a step slow against reach blocks. Not maybe a perfect example of a leg technique by our sophomore nose on this clip, but it is a great example of if I'm focused up front on just getting underneath the level of the guy across from me, of knocking the guy across from me back, I can disrupt plays. Just keeps going and ends up tripping, knocking the guard off his path and the ball carrier. We'll get the end zone shot. It's pretty good here. You can see right now the guard has to belly back extra. Makes it really easy for our four technique on the right side of your screen there to come down and play inside that trap block. And you can see the ball carrier get tripped up and go almost go down just by the nose, knocking the center back, and the center's legs trip that ball carrier, and then we get a bunch of yellow jerseys to the ball, which is always good. Again, mismatch here at nose, but it's creating an even bigger mismatch by using a leg technique, which again is just us being more aggressive in a two gapping technique where our focus is knock the offensive lineman across from me back. Here we got our nose in a zero technique. He's trying to knock that center back. Does create some separation, splits the double team vertically by pushing the center back and putting the center on a level that's deeper than the guard that's trying to double team. He's able to work into the play side A-gap because he feels that pressure on the double team and does a nice job of being part of the tackle on the fullback trap play. Again, complete disruption. It's a mismatch, but it's more of a mismatch because we're focused on getting off the ball and then knocking guys back. Real good scramble here. So now what happens as a guy that's playing a leg technique of a guy who's focused on knocking the offensive lineman back? Your pad level needs to be nice and low, and you got to be ready to forklift underneath that guy because he's eventually going to resort to cutting you if it's a mismatch that he can't handle, which is what you're going to see on this clip. Does a great job at nose of getting back on his feet, and we got some other guys going after the quarterback making the sack there. And then last clip here. It's not a great leg technique, and it ends up being, we're cut. But we keep our backside inside linebacker completely clean to scrape, and our nose does a great job of getting back in pursuit. So could have lined up with better pad level, could have played with better pad level and got underneath them and taken this on a little bit better. But bottom line, if you're forcing the offense to resort to cutting like this, they're not going to get movement on a double team or a block of any sort that's going to disrupt the path of your inside linebackers. If our inside linebacker on the top of the screen here would have read his guard, he'd be scraping. We'd have two linebackers for the down blocking guard. We have the kick out on the outside linebacker, and we are up numbers if we keep those inside linebackers clean, which we did, but the backside linebacker didn't make the play. So once again, playing a leg technique is not simply like go to the backside and lose against the reach block or anything. It's make sure that I create a knockback. It's me aggressively playing both A-gaps through the offensive lineman, or we could do it as a 2 technique or a 4 technique and create a knockback. And because of that, I'm more susceptible to getting reached, but that keeps your inside linebackers clean. Thanks for checking out this quick snap on Coaching Football with Brian Klee. Please follow me on Twitter at Coach Klee. Subscribe to the channel, Coaching Football with Brian Klee, by clicking down below. And if you have any further follow-up questions, email me at coachbrienklee@gmail.com.